Welcome back. In this section we will create the shader for our wormhole, which is the most important part of this course. One small thing we can do first is to change the world background color to black. We can do this in the world properties. Then, in the material properties, we can add a new material. We can name it, for example, Wormhole. We are not going to work on our shader via the Material Properties panel, since cool people don't do that. Instead, we can drag out a new window and set it to the node editor. In the node editor, we will build up our shader. You'll see two nodes are already there. You can delete the diffuse shader node and keep the material output. Always keep the material output. To start building our node tree, we can add a mix shader node. With this node you can mix two other shaders. With the VEC value slider you can then decide which shader dominates or not. A glossy shader is the first shader we will add and connect to our mix shader node. We can also set the color of the glossy shader to black and set the roughness to 0. This black glossy part is for our front of the wormhole. Now we can duplicate the mix shader node and connect it to the original mix shader node, because we are going to mix two shaders for the other part of the wormhole. The two shaders we are going to mix are the emission and the transparent shader. The emission shader is for the texture or the colors, and the transparent is for the transparent parts between the colors, so we can see space through it. The reason why we use an emission shader here is because I discovered it renders faster than using, for example, a glossy or a diffuse shader, because emission shaders are only emitting light and not bouncing or absorbing. In the 3D viewport we can switch to top view and set the viewport rendering to cycles, so that we can see in real time the updates we make to our shader node tree. In order to create a transition from the textured part to the black part in the front, we need to add a gradient texture node and a color ramp node. You can make the socket connections as shown. The color ramp node in this case will be used to fine-tune the gradient texture, and that combination will serve as the vector for our first mix shader node. We can change the setting of our gradient texture from linear to easing, since the easing setting will give a smoother transition effect. Then we can add a texture coordinate node and a mapping node. These two nodes usually go to the far left of the node tree. We can connect the texture coordinate node with the mapping node and the mapping node with the gradient texture node. We can also set the mapping type to texture. Then we can change the interpolation of our color ramp node to ease and change the two handles of the color scale as shown. Since our emission part of the shader is gone, we need to adjust the mapping coordinates so that it appears again. It seems the location X value needs to be increased, but probably also the one of the rotation values needs to be changed. Let's try to change the rotation Z angle. Perhaps 90 degrees will do the trick. Now we see our gradient texture is in the right direction. Now we just need to smooth it out so that it has a more fading transition, which can be done by adjusting the color ramp node. Now the fading transition I think is a bit stretched out, so we can change this by working further on our color ramp node. So I have added another handle on the color ramp node via the plus sign and made that middle handle black as well. This narrowed the gradient a bit. You can also shift the transition over to the wormhole length with the mapping node location Y value. I think the first part of our wormhole shader looks good to me. In the next lecture we will start experimenting with using textures for the emission part of the wormhole shader. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and see you in the next one.